My teeth are just full of Oreo.
Yep.
And all I can think about is the sex cookies story I told you about.
Wait,
The
which one?
Oreos are sex cookies because in my middle school, the whole school had an assembly where the administrators used Oreos as a demonstration for STDs.
You did tell me this, but you have to go further into it.
They made like 5 people stand up at the front of the entire 8th grade class, and they gave each of them an Oreo where they had to eat the Oreo, and then they passed down a glass of water. They made everyone take a swig of water, swish it around in their mouth, and then spit it into the cup, and they all spit it into the same cup, so it was like disgusting, right? Because Oreos leave behind so much residue.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow this was a metaphor for what you're doing when you have sex with someone, is drinking that water. They gave it to one person. They're like, drink this. And they were like, no, I don't want to. They're like, then why would you have sex with someone? I don't know. I honestly don't know how that metaphor makes sense now.
Yeah. Do you think it's gotten better at your school?
I have no idea. I haven't been there in 5-6 years.
You should go attend one of the assemblies.
Well, the husband of our health teacher did get arrested on sexual assault charges for carrying on 2 relationships with students during my time while I was there. So that's telling.
Well, yeah, that was pretty casual to Utah.
Really?
Was the teacher dating student thing.
Really?
It was every year. There was a new school district that was under fire for a teacher dating a student. All of the time.
That's concerning.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It wasn't good.
No.
It wasn't. It was every time. It was like, huh? Well, yeah, another one.
That's not good.
Yeah, you know,
But at least you guys had comprehensive sex ed.
called dating teachers.
No, I mean you guys actually had sex ed.
Yeah, we did. We had the like semester long where they would go into it briefly, and then I took the year long one where they more expanded on sex ed and stuff. And so we were pretty dang lucky in retrospect to have that.
Yeah, compared to people like me who didn't understand sex until like 2 years ago, so.
Yeah, I did not think of my penis entering an Oreo ever in my life, which was cool.
I didn't either. But somehow it was supposed to relate. We've been recording.
Oh yeah, this is the episode.
This is it.
Yeah, welcome.
To Jump Scare the Podcast.
Yeah.
Ooh, scary. Creepy. I'm just imagining people listening to the intro that's going to be all creepy and exciting and scary. And then, yes, you know, Oreos were sex cookies, right?
That's exactly what's going to happen.
Sorry, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Olivia.
Yeah, and I'm Casey.
And what we do on this podcast is we come up with ideas for horror movies. Basically, what we do is just develop a treatment, which is something I learned about this week.
Oh, really?
And every seasoned, or even not seasoned, everyone who knows anything about screenwriting right now is angry at me. They're like, you literally just learned about this? Bitch, you've been doing this podcast for how many weeks? You've been billing yourself as a screenwriter for how long, and you don't know what a fucking treatment is? I didn't.
Well, for everybody non-initiated, please describe a treatment.
It's like a written prose version of a script, but like shorter. So like 10 pages, I think. Like a synopsis of like everything that's going to happen in your script. And basically what we do is we develop that, but like verbally.
Wah!
What was
That's
that?
it. That was the light bulb going up.
That's everyone going, oh, is that all? Is that all it is?
That's what you're doing on this podcast? Oh, I thought that they were like really making the full script. I thought that was this.
No, we'd have to have follow through for that.
That's episode 89. That's when we start doing the entire script.
We'd have to have like no fear of commitment, no ADD, no day jobs.
Which, if that's what you're looking for in a podcast, you can shop somewhere else.
If that's what you're looking for in a millennial artist, you're shit out of luck.
No, we do podcasts because we don't have the follow through for film.
It's true. Podcasts are easier because you can just talk about doing the thing. You never have to actually do it.
Damn right.
We watched Cam.
We did watch Cam. What'd you
which was
think?
interesting. It stuck with me a little bit because I think it's we watched it and afterward we were both like, oh, it wasn't really a horror movie because it was more like a thriller, and it wasn't very scary. But it stuck with me because there is an interesting modern horror about it. The feeling of someone else being you online and how much of an impact that can have on your private life, your personal life. And it's interesting because that would never be, it's not like an inherent primal human fear like so many horror movies deal with, but it is a different kind of horror that is still horrifying in its own right.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I liked it. Some of it was a little not fleshed out enough. Like whatever the actual thing was, maybe wasn't quite fleshed out enough.
Yeah.
I wanted it to be elaborated on a little bit more because I thought that was kind of the most interesting part of it. I liked the main character a lot.
Yeah, me too.
I thought she was really cool.
Yeah.
And I kind of liked the family dynamics, and I liked the ending of the mom helping her.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, the actress, great performances, but yeah, it did feel kind of underdeveloped, and I'm usually a fan of vagueness. I like things that aren't fully answered, but that one, it felt that time like the filmmakers didn't even really know what it was, and that's a problem. Like when the filmmakers know what it is but they don't tell people, that's fine. When the filmmaker doesn't know what it is, then that's just a problem.
Yeah, it's a lost opportunity.
Yeah. I also watched last night the what's it called? Oh, Possum. It's called Possum.
Uh-huh.
And it had great reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. It had like 92% or something, and it was like this indie UK film. I did not like it.
What was it?
It was about this middle-aged man who was carrying around a bag with him everywhere, and inside the bag was a puppet. And if you didn't know it was a puppet from reading the summary, then it would take you like half the film to realize it was a puppet. But it's really creepy because it's like 4 feet tall probably, and most of it is just giant spider legs. Like it's got a mannequin head that's like porcelain and scary and blank, and then like a spider body basically, and that's the puppet. And he keeps trying to get rid of it, and it keeps reappearing in the bag. And he keeps having visions about it and bad dreams about it, and it keeps reappearing, and he keeps trying to destroy it in different ways. And all of this is intercut with weird imagery of like balloons with smoke that was just way too artsy. And then in the end, it kind of makes sense. It was like the Invitation, where everything that needed to happen happened in the last 20 minutes of it, and the rest of the movie just felt like filler.
That's a bummer.
It was a bummer. It was a really creepy puppet, but it didn't end up actually being like a puppet haunting. It was just a metaphor for his trauma, maybe? I don't know.
So did you ever see the puppet move or anything?
A little bit. There was like this montage where the puppet was chasing him, but it was not clear whether it was happening in real life or it was a flashback or it was a dream.
Mm-hmm.
And then the puppet didn't make an appearance after he like dealt with his family trauma.
Huh.
So
B-?
It wasn't even very scary.
Really?
No.
Was the puppet cool?
The puppet was cool, but and the puppet could have been really scary. I just felt like it was someone made this cool ass puppet and was like, "Oh, we should make a scary movie about this," and then didn't know what to do.
And then they were like, "Shit, we have funding."
Yeah.
Well, here it is.
They were funded by, I think, the BFI Lottery Fund, so it was like they just won funding, I mean, kind of out of nowhere, and had to make something.
Yeah, if it was kind of creepy, then I guess good on them.
Successful? I don't know.
I don't know about successful, but it was something.
Well, I mean, a lot of critics on Rotten Tomatoes thought that it was successful. I did not agree, but
yeah,
I have a very particular taste.
Yeah, and critics, I mean, well, it's interesting because that seems like it almost could be up your alley.
Oh yeah,
with
creepy
the
puppets,
metaphor and
atmospheres,
stuff.
metaphor for family trauma. I love those things,
Yeah.
but it wasn't well executed.
Yeah, it just seems like it didn't have it wasn't like built out fully or sort of given enough attention and detail.
It wasn't. Oh well, speaking of horror movies, which is what we speak about every time,
Every time.
I believe you are going on this episode.
Yes, I am. It's my turn.
It is your turn.
I shall seize the day
All
and
right.
seize the mic. Okay, I don't have a name for this one, but I do have character names.
Okay.
You ready?
Yes. I'm on pins and needles here.
The film begins with Kayla and Rachel. Kay and Ray.
Oh God.
They're twins
Oh God.
who make their living as Insta adventurers.
As Insta adventurers?
Mhm.
Like Instagram?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
They're Instagram influencers.
Okay, that
who
makes me
go-
feel better about their names.
who go to abandoned and macabre places.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So, in other words, they're doctors.
Dark Taurus.
I felt like I just couldn't do this episode without
Without
mentioning Dark
Dark
Tourist.
This is like not a long story necessarily, but
No, it's
Dark
brief.
Tourism is the Netflix show, and my favorite part about the Dark Tourist TV show is that because he's New Zealander,
Mm-hmm.
every time he pronounces Dark Tourist, it sounds like he's like Dak Taurus, pronounced or spelled, I think, Daktaurus,
Absolutely spelled that way.
Dak Taurus.
The spookiest thing about going into the night is that you become a Dark Taurus.
Yeah. So, so Kay and Ray. I also like the idea that Rachel's real name is actually Rachel, but because they needed to have some cute handle on Instagram, they decided to make her name Rachel so that they could be Kay and Ray.
Fair enough. I'm open to that
Already
idea.
headcanoning.
Yeah,
Continue.
for sure. Take that as headcanon. I'm totally for it. Okay. Kayla and Ray are introduced pretty much just scaling like sort of a frozen mountainside. Sort of
Damn!
that. Yeah.
It's like full Tom Cruise.
Yeah. They're badasses.
All right.
Yeah. They're not we'll get into it, but they're definitely not sort of the stereotype of Instagram influencers.
So they're not me.
Well, they might be. They're not like the shallow version. I wouldn't classify you and your Instagram as shallow
I
in
would.
any way. All right.
That's
Well,
what the brand is.
okay.
Continue.
Sure. So we're introduced to them scaling sort of a mountainside when Kayla takes out her phone, and it's one of I don't know that this actually exists or works, but it does in the film. Is she's just got one of those military type ones where it can get a signal anywhere, but it's for Instagram.
Okay.
And she checks it, and all of a sudden she starts freaking out in celebration and loses track of the wire holding on to Rachel. And she starts to fall, and then she catches her at the last moment. Rachel's like, "What the fuck, Kayla? What just happened?" And Kayla looks down to Rachel and she goes, "We just got signed on to go to the mines. Going to the Smert mines."
Is this in Iceland?
In Russia. But I just have
okay.
Smert.
It's like me when I try to tell people that I'm smart.
Right,
It's
Smert. I'm Smert.
Because we are smart.
The Smert oil mine in Russia.
Okay.
And Rachel looks like hesitantly at first and is like, "Wait, really?" And I thought we weren't, like, I thought we didn't get accepted for the tour. And then Kayla's sort of like, "Yeah, I guess the people dropped out, but we got to get there ASAP. It's supposed to be happening in about a week." And Rachel is just like, "What? I thought we were going to take like kind of a break for a second, deal with things." And Kayla's like, "No, I mean, come on, this is the best opportunity of our life. Like, we get an exclusive tour into one of the most notorious places for a dark tourist." And Rachel's like, "All right, fine." And they like celebrate a little bit more that they got it, and they continue the hike. And they get up to the top, which is like an abandoned little town, sort of probably in the Himalayas or something like that.
Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Lit.
And that's the beginning of the film.
Okay.
And then it sort of goes into a pretty quick montage of them getting their travel arranged and everything, and traveling to Russia and getting through, doing sort of the like, yeah, we're influencers. We're not doing anything else here. We're just here to, do the tour thing, and get through. And like, they're definitely keeping under wraps that they're going to this mine.
Okay.
This mine is not a place that they're able to talk about or anything. The thing that they like, the guide themselves, it's like, this isn't legal strictly. So
The guide.
yeah, right.
Really trustworthy.
Yeah. I didn't name the guide.
That's fine.
It can be whatever.
I don't care. I don't like naming anything. I just like the idea that this guide is definitely the most suspicious person in the world.
Yeah.
This guide is definitely like... Have you seen The Descent?
I haven't, although it sort of serves as a little inspiration for this.
Have you seen The Descent 2?
Nope.
I was going to say, this guide is definitely the sheriff in the Descent 2, who you think is a good guy and then actually is not.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
Is it?
No.
Oh.
No, it's not. It's
okay.
gonna take a
Okay.
different turn than that.
Okay. I thought I had predicted your entire story from the first 5 minutes. Continue.
You didn't?
That's probably for the best.
Yeah. This probably is good that I'm not making the Descent too.
Yeah.
Okay. So they basically, I want them to get to the mine as fast as possible. So they'll talk about once I get done with this. There is a portion that I kind of want your opinion and help on.
Okay.
So pretty much we get them driving out to the location and get them at the spot meeting the guide, who, yeah, definitely not like the chillest or like most, like the person who gives off the most like, yeah, you're totally safe vibes, but he also clearly has done this several times.
Okay.
What I'm thinking is mentioning something along the lines of that he does it like twice a year, and it's expensive to
Okay.
do. And so it's a notorious thing because it's not an easy thing.
Right.
And so, and that he normally only takes 2 to maybe 5 people, and this one it's just them.
Okay.
And so they meet up with the person, and they start going down into the mine. And what happens then is that they're sort of scaling down, and it's that they literally have to at points use like harness and rope to go down, because what happened and the backstory of the mine is that Russia in like 1989 was digging these giant, or like these holes deep into the earth that were scaling further than anyone else had ever. Mm-hmm. And at one point they got to a certain depth where it was a lot hotter than they had anticipated, where it was just like, the temperature was literally just hotter than they had anticipated, and it melted the iron of the shafts and collapsed part of the tunnel, killing 13 people.
Okay. Got some lore.
Yep.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yeah, and some little whisperings of a haunt and everything going on, that
Great.
maybe this isn't, that this really is like the for real like haunting and stuff. I even could add in a little bit of them talking to the locals or something,
Right,
if we wanted, saying you shouldn't go out there.
All right.
And so they start going down in, and at one point all 3 of them are attached to rope to harness, and they're going down. And Rachel is basically at the bottom, and Kayla is in the middle, and the guide is at the top. And what happens is Kayla starts to basically she like all of a sudden a spout of exhaustion comes over her, and she starts to slip a little bit and grabs a rock, and it sort of pulls out, and all of a sudden things are falling around them. And Rachel like lands, but she's okay. And Kayla falls, and as she's falling, you're seeing all of these rocks coming down around them.
Yeah.
And Kayla falls, hits her leg, and tweaks her knee, probably severely spraining or breaking it. Rachel is able to grab her out of the way just in time, but as you see the guide fall to the ground and get crushed by the rocks.
Uh-oh.
And this is where the rest of the film kicks
Yeah.
off, is that they are now buried in this this possibly haunted mine, and their guide had told them, probably as they're going down, that there is only one other exit that they could go through, and that's at basically the pit of the mine where the other collapse had happened, and it's another entrance, but that's like they are gonna have to scale up it if they want to get out of here. And so the rest of the film is these two people trying to survive and get to the other end of this mine, and then once they get there, having to pull themselves up and get out of this mine. And so that's the basic premise.
Awesome. Love it. Love that imagery.
So there's one other bit that it was kind of hard to include it in just a quick synopsis, but is going to be a crucial component of it, which is that Kayla has MS, multiple sclerosis.
Okay. Interesting.
And so...
Are they identical or not?
They are identical. So MS is really an interesting disease. My uncle has it, which is why I sort of have a close connection to it. And there are a lot of theories on what causes it. And there's a lot of we don't know out there, which is the basic thing is that because it has to do with the brain literally not communicating with the body properly. The belief is that there's probably something to do with it being genetic, but that there is some form of, there's something, whether it's like physical or mental, there is something that jumpstarts MS that can cause it to sort of start showing symptoms and everything.
Like trigger it.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not like...
So Rachel does not have it.
Okay.
Or it at least isn't showing symptoms.
Okay.
It's not affecting her. Whereas I kind of in my headcanon, Kayla has known only for maybe a year and has been dealing with it. And so kind of the character arc or stories that I want to see from them is Kayla going from, she was sort of the caretaker in the family of these two siblings. But when she was diagnosed, started being like, fuck it, I'm just here to do life while I can and go hard. And so is the one pushing them towards the adventure, and then is the one who needs to sort of decide to keep surviving when she wants to give up.
Okay.
And then Rachel, being the younger by like 3 minutes, is the more free spirit who needs to learn to be a caretaker of her sister and be a support structure for her sister.
Okay. Solid internal conflicts.
Yeah.
So what happens while they're down there?
Yeah. So a few different ideas for what could happen down there. One is them like wanting to play with claustrophobia. And so like them having to like at one point sort of squeeze through a small like air duct or something to get past a blockage or something, where it's like really just them trying to push their bodies through and get through. Another thing is Kayla having to deal with her knee, and that stopping them, but also, I mean, that's like kind of clearly a symbol for her actual internal state and her MS, but that being representative. And then also I kind of want to see like hearing these whispers or something in there, like it, like possibly, I don't actually think that it's haunted, but I think like their imaginations in the dark start to play off that it's haunted a little bit.
So it's not haunted.
I don't think so.
Okay. So what genre do you see this falling into? Is this more of like a thriller then?
Yeah, like a survival thriller, probably.
Okay. Solid.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that helps deviate it from The Descent.
Yeah.
It's pretty similar in a few ways, and I was like, but yeah, as long as there aren't like zombie things underground, you're probably pretty good.
No, there are not.
Okay.
No, I would say, I guess potentially it could be like The Descent and 127 Hours.
Okay.
Where it's somebody stuck somewhere and trying to get through this. And I think the big thing that this would fall on is the sibling relationship.
Okay.
And so like them sort of dealing with that, like I think for Rachel dealing with that, Kayla sort of got them into this situation by pushing her body too much and not taking care of herself, and Rachel not knowing how to deal with that. And so there being conflict there. And then Kayla almost that self-hatred
Right.
for herself and her body.
So what are you really attached to?
I didn't have a ton of non-negotiables because it was mainly just like the little plot pieces.
Yeah.
Like I could see them not being twins. I could see them
Okay.
being slightly different in age.
Siblings, whatever. I don't have a problem with twins. I think your first scene in the mine is super awesome, and I want to see that earlier because I don't want to go through a montage of them traveling and everything to get to that point. I think it would almost be it would be quicker to the point if you have them climbing up the iceberg or something, the ice wall, but they're doing it at the same time, like one person isn't above or whatever, and it pulls out and it's a video on Instagram and they're like watching something that they've already done or something. And then you can get the background of the fact that they're influencers by one of them saying like, oh, this one performed so well, like we already have 100,000 views or whatever, things like that. And like just imagine how great this next one's gonna be or whatever, where they're already like in Russia or getting off the plane, and then you can have them going through customs and lying about why they're there, and then you have them basically arriving. So like it just skips ahead a little bit.
Got it. I totally like
Tightening
that.
it up a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I do want it to jump into it as fast as possible.
Yeah. Another thing, because right now it seems like the influencer thing I like a lot because it's very topical. It's very relevant, but it kind of goes away after just the premise. Like it just feels like, oh, this is why they're there, but it doesn't seem to play much into that. Could it be that the reason Kayla slips, in addition to the fact that she has MS, is that she was trying to like take a video or something of it for Instagram or something, and that's why she falls? Or is that too contrived?
I agree that the influencer, I don't want it to disappear and not have an influence on the piece itself. It might be a little contrived that she screws up by that.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know if that would also take away from, because I think a non-negotiable probably is MS.
Yeah.
In it.
Yeah.
I think that's just a personal attachment, and I would like to see it represented in a film.
Yeah.
And I also think it's a pretty good one, because one of the things that can be played with that is, so as they have to continue into the mine, it's going to get hotter, and it's going to, and so that would really start to affect some of the symptoms of MS. And she would have progressive MS, which there is a difference between progressive and multiple sclerosis. Multiple sclerosis.
MS. Well, then the influencer thing could come into play at a different point. Like maybe one of them drops her phone and is insistent that they go after it or go find it because, like, well, all of our content's on there. Like, that's our life. Like, that's our livelihood or whatever. And then, like, they have to be one of them has to be convinced not to do that or whatever. Like, it's got to be it's an important plot point later.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think there can be little moments of like I think that they could open it up, like do a video. Obviously it wouldn't be able to connect to Instagram immediately, but they could do a video that's like, well, we're fucked.
Yeah.
This is us dying.
Yeah.
Now.
This is the kind of thing that would work really well as found footage, but that might be a bit
I thought
much.
about it. I just, I don't think it's quite right.
Yeah.
I totally agree, but then they have to be vlogging the entire time, and that would drive me insane.
Yeah, that would be a bit much. Yeah. That's the other thing, is trying to figure out, like, if your guy dies, as he does, which I think is important, it's like a necessary part of the plot.
Yeah.
I feel like any influencer stuff is going to go by the wayside immediately.
Well, yeah, and I think,
because it would just be in poor taste to do any, like, promotional videos. Well, like, oh, and by the way, our guy just died.
Yeah, I think it would probably come back in with them being trapped. And so this was actually one thing that I was trying to work through, which was like them actually being able to get out, because them getting to the other point wouldn't be that, like, it's not that long.
Right.
But I do want them to kind of be trapped down there for what feels like a longer period of time, which then if they're trapped, then like them doing a video isn't insane. It's just them being like, we're fucked.
How long do you think?
Probably a night.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't think a few days or anything.
Okay, yeah. So I was like, do they have food supplies? Like, how does this work?
Yeah. I mean, they would probably be prepared. Like, I was thinking about that. They probably have like a little bit of water, but again, it's hot. Like, it's at the point where like the other one would have happened, it would have been like very hot to be able to melt steel or something. So like it really does get quite hot.
They're going to be like shedding layers and shit as they go. When they finally get out, they're going to be in fucking Siberia without coats or clothes, freezing to death, which I think is an interesting way to end it, is that they're finally out, but now they're stuck. And now they're like kind of screwed in a different way.
Right.
A bit of a downer ending, but I love those. It's a different kind of trapped, which I think is interesting. So how do you want the horror aspects to play into it? We talked about claustrophobia.
I think this one has to really hit the feeling of being trapped for the spectator. So I think it's got to really play with the darkness, with those really quiet moments where they are possibly hearing murmuring or something, or I think that there can be playing in with them seeing. I don't think they're seeing monsters. I think they could be seeing like replaying of their past or something, but just seeing like themselves sort of like dying or different things. I don't know. But I think there could be some aspect of looking around a corner and all of a sudden they think they see something and it's not. Maybe not there.
While vlogging the whole time is frustrating, I still feel like found footage has a place here somewhere. Like, maybe they're wearing GoPros or something. Like, that's how it's set up. And it wouldn't be GoPro footage, obviously. But it would be like...
It's not going to be fisheye lens
the
entire
fucking
time?
Fisheye lens. But, no. But it's like, it's set up as if they're wearing GoPros. And... and instead, it's just like, it's constantly recording, like that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And so, like...
So it can jump to that found footage?
Well, it'd be like... I don't know, because it could be the whole... I don't know if it could be the whole thing, you're right. But, like, while they're in it, I feel like it could be really interesting. Because it's the kind of thing where if they're wearing it, they're not going to think to turn it off. So it's not like they're vlogging and being like, hey, checking in or whatever. It's just, like, kind of how it's done. But I feel like that opens it up to a better opportunities for the claustrophobic feeling because you're with them in their experience at all times.
I really like that. I think that is...
Yeah.
I really like it can be on their head or it can be on their chest or something.
Like that kind of a thing. And it could even be set up with the video that they have earlier. Like maybe they're both wearing a head thing or a chest thing in their video and they're like cutting back and forth or something like that in the video of them on the iceberg in the beginning. So you set up that that's how they do it. And then, yeah, when they're in the mine, I think it could be really interesting because then I went on this tour of the, what was it? The salt mine just outside of Krakow in Poland. And it's like one of the biggest mines in like the world and oldest. It's so freaking old. It was first excavated in like the 1300s or something. I don't know. But it is massive. And it just keeps going down and down and down and down and down. And that one is a salt mine. So it's not like an oil mine or a mine that has unstable components that they're mining for. So it was pretty stable at all times. But there are some incredible things down there because miners used to spend basically their lives down there. Like they'd go down for the mining season and they'd stay down there for weeks and weeks and then they'd come back up and get to like have a break. But to the point where they had places to like sleep down there and live. They would bring horses down there to power their like machinery and everything. So they had stables down there. They had chapels and churches for worship down there. They had a freaking huge cathedral ballroom down there that's beautiful, and it's massive. It's so insanely massive and so far underground. But like the imagery of the camera being worn on them, on like their chest or wherever, as they're struggling through these tiny, decrepit, like dilapidated halls or whatever, mine shafts, and then it opens out and they turn on like a flashlight or they light a lantern or something, and it's this massive cavern like space that was a chapel or something else, a cathedral or a church or a living space. In the salt mine, there were these massive like in underground lakes, like in Betrayal and House Hill, or at House on the Hill. There was like an underground lake where where rich people used to go as like a tourist thing in the 1800s to see like music performances above the underground lake.
That's insane.
It's crazy. And there were just, it was super cool and really crazy. And so to be able to see things like that adds a layer to the world that most people wouldn't think of when they're thinking of mines. I think most people think of mines as like My Bloody Valentine, where it's just a bunch of like random crisscrossy mine shafts
Right.
that are just stone and that's it, and it just kind of goes on forever and ever. But I think adding this layer of like, no, this used to be a place where people lived and spent their lives, and it has a historical purpose to it. I would love to see.
Yeah,
I think that would
absolutely.
be super cool. And then it gives you a nice contrast for those moments of claustrophobia, because you can get a feeling of expanse in this and then take it away
Yep.
and put them in a tight spot. You can have them crawling through the tight little tunnel, and then it collapses after Rachel's gone through and Kayla's trapped on the other side, and maybe she's trapped over there without a flashlight because Rachel took it to find her way through, and Kayla's freaking out because she's hearing voices and things and going insane in the darkness, but not really, and Rachel has to like get through, and at first maybe she's like, no, I'll just go to the end and I'll get help and I'll come back, and Kayla's like, no, you can't leave me here like this, and that kind of a thing, which puts the pressure on her to really to take up some responsibility and put her sister ahead of herself for once.
Yeah.
And so you're simultaneously dealing with the claustrophobia, the feeling of madness and being trapped, and also the sibling relationship.
Totally.
That was like one of the first scenes that I thought of when you were explaining it to me.
Yeah. That sounds great. I like that scene. That scene's in it.
Cool. Yeah, I just feel like with this one, because the basic plot of it is set up so early, and so there's no like twist in it, right? It's just kind of the survival story.
Yeah. It's literally they just need to get out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of setting up obstacles like that. Like,
Yeah. I thought one that would be like awful to watch, but would be interesting is like they like hit something where sort of oil starts to leak out, and it's like hot oil leaking around them, and so then it's like, and them feeling trapped and needing to get out of as like the oil's leaking towards them.
Yeah.
And then to like either at the last second like get up onto something
Yeah.
or something to get away.
Of
But
course.
so like those types of things.
Well, in
too.
that moment, it'd be great if it was like they're seemingly trapped. They thought this was the way through, but it's blocked because probably it's where the tunnel originally collapsed back in the day. Maybe it's at the end of the line.
Yep, that's why it was so hot. Is
It's-
there was
all this hot oil, and now it's leaking towards them, and they're stuck where there should be an exit, but there isn't, because maybe they've had a map that they took from the guide's belt or something this whole time.
yeah.
And the whole time they've been hearing these whispers, and it's been getting louder and louder as they've been getting closer and closer to the site of the exit, but also the site of the collapse. And they realize as they're trying to get up higher to get away from the oil, the whispering is actually the sound of air
Wind.
whistling through some
Yep.
cracks, and that's how they figure out how to get out. Oh, fuck. And so then you realize the whole time it wasn't a haunting, it was actually their way out.
Oh, that's good.
And it's almost got this Guillermo del Toro feel to it, where it's like the ghosts aren't the bad guy, the ghosts are the ones helping you get out.
Right, it does. And it has that feeling of that you have to embrace the fear, that you have to
Yes.
keep going through it, which is
Yes.
perfect for Kayla.
Yes.
That she has to go through the fear to find any sort of semblance of peace or survival.
Yeah. Yeah, and they have to do it together. Like, of course, in the end, they have to help each other out of the space and work together in some way,
Yeah.
naturally.
Yeah, and I don't know if this would work anymore, but maybe it would. I did have the image of like Kayla trying to do the self-sacrifice thing of like, no, like you can't keep I can't keep climbing with my leg. Like you need to go on your own, and just Rachel just like turn to her and be like, we're not fucking doing this alone.
Good, yeah.
Just be like, no,
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah. And I like the idea that when they're there in the last dead end tunnel that should have been their way out, and it's just a bunch of rubble ahead of them, and there doesn't seem to be any way out, that like Rachel or someone starts pulling rocks down, trying to think that they'll still dig their way out, and that's when the oil starts coming through as they trigger it themselves.
Oh yeah, and
by
just
trying to fight their way out.
seeing like the oil just like sort of hit the arm, and then and then immediately just creates that panic.
Yeah, that'd be really good. Especially after like, because there's gonna be them first getting there, the collapse, the dead guy, the leg problem, them trying to move on and figure it out. There'll be some them trying to figure it out. Then there's the squeezing through the tight tunnel and the collapse, and Kayla's on one side and Rachel's on the other side, and there's whispering and scary and blah 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 blah. And finally Rachel is able to clear the rubble and get Kayla through, and then they keep going, and then there's the phone thing at some point. Maybe it falls into like a cavern, and Rachel's like, I'm gonna go down and get it, it's fine, and Kayla's like, no, you're not gonna do that, or something like that, or vice versa.
Yeah.
And that's an obstacle. And then, like, maybe there'll be other ones or not, but then having them finally get through all of those things, and maybe they get turned around at one point and they're walking in circles, and they finally figure out that they were going the wrong way or something.
Well, and I really think you're right on discovering some form of chasm that it opens up, and I really do love that. And I love, like, just a little line of, well, we could just live here.
Right? Just live here forever. And then maybe one of their, like, lanterns goes out, or one of their flashlights goes out, and they're like, oh shit,
oh,
we gotta get out of here.
Yeah.
And then it's an added layer of urgency and panic.
Yep.
Culminating in them finally figuring out this map. I mean, it's probably a map in Russian too, so they have to figure that out. So another added layer of obstacle, and so they're finally getting through all that just to end up at a dead end. Where it's really fucking hot.
And I had it ending that they had to find a dead end of some kind, and just that has to be the moment where it's just like, we're gonna die. This is it. This is the end of it all. And great.
And the whispering is louder, and there's got to be commentary the whole time too of like, it's getting louder. Like, can you hear it?
Oh yeah.
And then you hear it. It's like really creepy. Every time there's silence, it gets a little louder. And there could be, like, when they're in the cavern or something, they pass by a doorway in an archway, and the whispering's even louder there, and one of them thinks they see something down there, and they go chasing after it. And it's like, what did she see? But it wasn't anything.
Yeah.
That kind of a thing. Creepy.
So spooky.
Yeah, okay.
Cool.
So lead me through your ending that you had in mind, because you had an ending in mind.
Yeah, so I really love the idea of them having to pull themselves up basically an abandoned, like, 1980s elevator shaft.
Yeah.
And so them having to do it together while Kayla is like, I mean, her leg is totally busted at this point. Rachel's now burned by the oil, and so they're battered, bruised, and they're just having to pull themselves out of the darkness, which I really liked. So, and also I really love if it was sort of buried in them having like that visual of them pulling themselves through the dirt, which I think would be kind of fascinating. I mean at the bottom. I guess it could be at the top too. I meant like if with them having to follow the wind.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and like, because I actually did think of having that at the top, but it maybe makes more sense at the bottom, that it's sort of buried in since they have to do that. But getting them, and then just the two of them working together, and Kayla at one point just being like, no, you need to go without me, and Rachel being like, you're not fucking dying down here. We're getting out of this thing. And finally breaking through to the surface and looking out over a Siberian night where it's just this sort of expanse, but the two of them made it together. And
they're injured and sweaty and gross, and one of them feel like, it's fucking cold or something.
Great end line.
Just an ending that's just like, oh shit. Another thing. But no claustrophobia this time. Or someone can say something about like, but at least we have the stars or something. It's kind of a nice, like, they're no longer trapped. They're freezing to death, but they're not trapped.
Right. And I do think it's important to even if there is a little bit of like, oh, now they're in another thing, that there is some solace in that they got through it together.
Yeah, they got through literally hell where it was going to burn them alive kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I like how that turned out. I liked where that went. How do you feel about it?
I feel really good.
Yeah.
I feel like this one is... We joked about earlier the follow through, but this one is like, it's just very clear.
Yes, it's
what
very
can
contained,
happen,
which is nice. And you set up the world nicely, like with the mine shaft having collapsed, people died, maybe it's haunted, they hear whispers. Like the whole thing was set up so easily that all we had to do is fit in the extra pieces.
Yeah,
which is great.
Cool, and thank you so much because I really appreciate those extra pieces. I think those
of course,
are
this is what I live for.
The little juicy moments.
Yeah, I think this one felt really good to work on.
Cool.
Nice job. Thanks for listening. Make sure you rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes. How do you subscribe, Casey?
You go to the show and you click the button that says subscribe.
It's that easy.
Yeah.
Also, make sure you follow us on social media. You can find us on Twitter at JumpscareThePod because it was too long.
And you can go to Instagram and Jumpscare the Podcast because it wasn't long enough.
What? Casey?
Yeah?
Boo!
Who?